Do you remember those times when you were a kid and you'd just be ready to dash onto the beach and have a good time, only to be stopped by your mom to apply sunscreen? The concept of protecting yourself from the sun probably wasn't on your mind then. You were probably just impatiently waiting to be let loose. The threat of excessive UV radiation, however, has not only not gone away from when you were a kid, it has actually gotten significantly worse. For example, satellite data from NASA's news article in 2010 reveals that in a certain latitude, which includes the San Diego area in California, they've observed a 6% increase in UV radiation and within just the past 30 years. While we don't necessarily live in that area, we still experience similar alarming levels of UV radiation. This is why wearing sunscreen and UPF clothing regularly is absolutely necessary to protect ourselves from the health risks of excessive UV radiation. For us, especially living in Central California, we experience significant exposure to the sun through frequent sunny days, as well as consistently high in UV index levels. As a result, avoiding excessive exposure is pretty much impossible, so we must take appropriate measures to protect ourselves. I have to be honest, I hadn't taken sun protection very seriously until I moved here, but learning through my friends' suggestions, my own experience with the California sun, as well as personal research has shown me just how valuable sunscreen and UPF clothing is. So, in order to understand the necessity of wearing UPF clothing and sunscreen daily, we're going to discuss some different aspects of sun exposure and protection. First, I'm going to talk about the severity of health risks associated with UV radiation. Then I'll talk about the significance of the protection we receive from sunscreen and UPF clothing. And finally, I'll address some common concerns that people might have with wearing them regularly. So first, we're going to get into the health risks. So a website page from Illinois Department of Public Health that was updated in 2024 says that 90% of skin cancers are caused by excessive UV radiation. This is because UV radiation will damage the DNA in skin cells, and the reproduction of these damaged skin cells is what causes skin cancers. One of the most notable kinds of skin cancer is melanoma, and a website page by Cleveland Clinic that was reviewed in 2021 says that 86% of melanoma cases are caused by excessive UV radiation. Also, United States Environmental Protection Agency's website that was updated just months ago says that melanoma causes over 75% of skin cancer-related deaths. This is because the melanoma is formed by the reproduction of melanocytes, and it happens to be very likely to spread to other parts of the body when left untreated, which makes it so dangerous. Along with melanoma, there are also non-melanoma skin cancers, and interesting enough, a webpage from American Cancer Society that was revised last year says that this is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the U.S. There are two main types. There's the basal cell carcinoma, which occurs in the lower part of the epidermis. It's less likely to spread to other parts of the body, but it can reach bone and potentially damage bone tissue, which is a problem. There's also squamous cell carcinoma, which occurs in the upper part of the epidermis. It's less common, but it can spread to other parts of the body, which makes it a little bit dangerous. Along with this, UV radiation, and specifically UVA rays, can actually reach the dermis layer of the skin, which is deeper, and it has connective tissue and blood vessels, and that will actually get damaged by the UV radiation. This is what causes premature aging in the skin, which leads to wrinkling. So now that we understand the severity of the health risks associated with this excessive UV radiation, it's important to understand the effectiveness of wearing sunscreen and UPF clothing regularly. First, let's get into the sunscreen. Sunscreen is the most valuable form of protection for areas of the skin that isn't frequently covered by clothing, so that could be your face, your ears, your neck, your hands, as well as your feet. And an article from MD Anderson Cancer Center that was published in 2024 explains that there are two main types of sunscreens. The first are physical blockers or sunblock, and they use ingredients such as titanium dioxide and zinc oxide to reflect UV rays away from your skin. And then there's also chemical absorbers, which form a protective barrier on your skin, and it will simply absorb the harmful UV radiation. So there is a measuring system that measures how effective the sunscreen is at protecting you from UVB rays specifically, that is SPF, or sun protective factor. So an SPF rating of 50 will, it typically translates to 98% of protection from UVB rays. Then there's also UPF clothing. And Helly Hansen, a clothing store that makes UPF clothing, wrote a guide in 2025 that explains the features of clothing that make it extra protective against the sun. That includes having a tighter weave in the structure, as well as the use of certain fabrics such as polyester and nylon over cotton, and also the treatment of material using sun-blocking chemicals. All of these factors make the clothing more protective against the sun. So there's a similar system, SPF, in clothing, which is UPF, which is ultraviolet protection factor, and having a UPF rating of 50 means that it blocks 98% of total UV radiation, which includes UVA and UVB rays, so it's really effective. Many people, of course, they know the health risks of UV radiation, they understand that they have to wear sunscreen and UPF clothing, but they may have some concerns that stop them from wearing them regularly. So I'm going to provide some solutions. The first concern is that UPF clothing can typically be very hot to wear during sunny days. So I actually have a solution for that. This is a UV jacket that I got from Uniqlo, and they have a UV protection wear line. So it's very nice, you can even feel it. It's very lightweight, it's very thin, so it's really breathable, and it has a UPF rating of 50 plus, so it is still very effective at protecting you from the sun while also being able to be worn during hot days. Another concern that people might have is that sunscreen can feel really thick on the skin. It can cause some sensory issues, and that's me. I personally have this problem. So I was using this sunscreen, Blue Lizard, and it is really effective, but it's really thick, and sometimes I just can't really stand the feel of it. So instead I would go for something like Biore sunscreen. So this one has a watery gel consistency, and when you apply it, it kind of immediately absorbs into the skin, so you really don't feel it. It has an SPF rating of 50 plus and a PA rating of 4 plus, and PA just means the Asian rating system for how much UVA rays it protects you from, which means it really covers both bases. This one is also really travel friendly, so you can really, it's only 2.4 fluid ounces, so you can bring it with you anywhere. And the last concern that people might have is that wearing a sunscreen can cause acne breakouts. So I personally don't have this issue, but I do know people in my topic discussion group and friends have talked about how it causes this issue. So I would recommend a sunscreen such as Isntree Sunstick. This one has hyaluronic acid, which will hydrate the face, and it also reduces inflammation, which can lead to acne breakouts. Also, this one comes in the sunstick format, kind of like a deodorant, so you can really conveniently reapply throughout the day, and also it avoids contamination by applying with your hands, which can also reduce the chances of breakout. This one has the same rating as Biore, so it has a SPF rating of 50 plus and a PA rating of 4 plus, so it's just as strong and just as effective, but probably won't give you the acne breakouts, which is really nice. So today we discussed all the different aspects of sun exposure and protection that make wearing UPF clothing and sunscreen daily an absolute necessity. We talked about the health risks associated with the UV radiation, we talked about the significance of the protection that we receive from using these products, and we also provided some solutions to some common concerns people might have with wearing them. The information provided in this speech just kind of shows that there's absolutely no reason to not wear sunscreen and UPF clothing regularly. So, if you haven't been consistently wearing sunscreen and UPF clothing, now's a good time to establish this habit.